Welcome to Corpse Club, the official podcast of DailyDead.com. I'm one of your co-hosts, Jonathan James, and I'm joined today by Derek Anderson, Bryan Christopher, and Scott Drebit. It's the first week of November, and as we always do, it's an annual thing here with Corpse Club. This is our Halloween Hangover episode. For us here at Corpse Club and at Daily Dead, and I think for a lot of, horror journalists or people who are working in the horror entertainment industry, we love horror, we love Halloween, but also October is the busiest month of the year. I think in a lot of ways, this was probably the busiest year or busiest October we've had at Daily Dead. And so, for this episode, it's like, hey, we survived. We made it through October. And this is kind of the start of when things slow down a little bit. They slow down as we get to the holidays. We catch our breath a little bit before it starts back up again, almost right away in January. I remember when, Derek, when you and I were first working on Daily Dead and covering things, our only busy times of the year, it was like Comic-Con in July through October. And after that, it was pretty slow. You might have had one, horror release or two, you'd have your Underworlds or your Mama would be in January. But after that, it was still kind of light. And and not anymore. And now it's horror 24/7. And then October, it just happens to be extra busy. And so, so like I said, so we enjoy it, but it's also very crazy. And so I wanted to, as we usually do, we're going to, have this episode. We're going to talk a little bit about, or a lot about our Halloween weekend. How did it go? What did we do? And then we are going to talk about what we did throughout our October. Did we catch any movies that we liked? Did we catch any movies we didn't like? What shows were we watching? What games were we playing? What events did we take part in? So, that'll be the, like I said, the focus of this episode, and I think, it's interesting because I think in a lot of ways, we see, whether it's on social media, whether it's, the news, whether it's, hanging out with your social circle, so many people want to get back to normal, to how things were a couple of years ago. And things were very different last year. And I think, though, that even though we wanted everybody to be kind of back to normal for Halloween this year, that wasn't necessarily the case. And, so I think we saw a mix of there were, some events, some things that were, where people were vaccinated. There's some things where people are going out in large groups. And there also are, and I'm sure a lot of our listeners are too. There are people who, stayed inside, who had, smaller, groups and, had Halloween parties with other people who were vaccinated. So this Halloween was still a little bit different. And, I'll kind of kick things off a little bit and say that, for me, it was very different in that I had, my dad fractured his back, and we usually have a big Halloween party with friends and family. Last year, we had it with just a handful of people, my parents and my sister and brother-in-law. And for this year, we're actually extending our Halloween. So my dad fractured his back. He's had some procedures to fix them. He's getting better. So he said, hey, Halloween can be on any day. So we're going to do Halloween with him and my mother, and we're going to dress up and wear costumes in a week and a half. And so Halloween's going to keep going almost till Thanksgiving for us, which is pretty awesome. It gives us a little bit of extra time. But for my Halloween, in general, the weekend was good. I spent time with my sister and brother-in-law, and they have a new kid. His name's Aurelio. He's my nephew. And so my wife, Christy, and I, we hung out with them. We did in-house trick-or-treating. And, we want to be careful because of COVID. We have some high-risk people that we don't want to get the Delta variant. And so we were like, well, how can we do this? And so what we did for Halloween is we had, like I said, we had an in-house Halloween. I mean, he's only 6 months old. We know he doesn't care if he gets candy. He can't eat the candy anyway. So what we did was we set up little stations in the house, and we had little baby Halloween toys. And so we found little stuffed ghosts and candy corn and chew toys and things that he could have fun with. And he loved it. He was all smiles. And as for the theme, it was Marvel based. And so he was Rocket Raccoon. If you have a child and you want to know if they have an official Rocket Raccoon outfit, or costume. They do. And my sister went as Gamora. Her husband, my brother-in-law, went as Star-Lord. And then my wife and I, we went as Loki. She went as Sylvia. I went as Loki from the TV series. So we had a lot of fun. We had a lot of fun in our house, and we decorated and did all that stuff. And that was my Halloween day. And I'll talk about the next day, but I don't want to hog the mic. So I will throw it over to Bryan. Bryan, how was your Halloween weekend? What did you do? What did you dress up as?
It was really good. I got an opportunity to go to a costume party / murder mystery party with some friends who, it's a group of people who have all been vaxxed. The host actually requested, if at all possible, proof of a negative COVID test in the days leading up to, and we were all masked. So there was still, the precautions were taken, and there were still some elements of kind of that pall over the proceedings, but it was still a really good time and a good opportunity to get together with people. And since moving to Seattle, it was nice to be able to start making some like person-to-person connection. I was also really happy with my costume. Anyone who knows me knows that like I get all excited a lot of years about dressing up, and then I'm utterly disappointed by the way the costume actually turns out. So, but this year I went as Nandor the Relentless from What We Do in the Shadows. And I decided like I was actually going to put a little money into it and make sure that it came out the way that I wanted to. There was actually this website that gives you a list of all the different things you can get for like a reasonable price to have like a reasonable facsimile of a Nandor the Relentless costume. And so I got it all in the mail. There was that kind of worry that because some of the stuff was coming, I think, from like somewhere in Asia. So it was like your arrival time will be somewhere between October 15th and November 5th. And so there was that kind of, waiting with bated breath to find out if it was all going to get here. It all did. The second kind of scare was when I realized that a couple of things were not meant for a man of my stature, even though I did get like an XXL to try and be sure. It was still a little snug. So some of the things that had zippers, I wasn't sure if they were actually going to zip. But it all wound up working out. It came together pretty well. And even the fake teeth, the whole, you do kind of like the putty that you put in and it's supposed to make a seal. I've tried that in the past and it doesn't work at all. These actually worked out pretty well. They stayed in. It was kind of useless because you couldn't see them half the time because I had my mask on. But overall, I was really happy with how it came out. I had a really good time with the murder mystery. It was the first one I'd ever done. They're corny as hell, but at the same time, it's a really good way to like get you to talk to other people at a party that you might not otherwise interact with. My usual kind of MO at a party is to stand with my wife by the food table. So I usually wind up not having met anybody and having eaten my weight in sodium. So this was a really good way to avoid doing that. So yeah, it was a really good time. And my wife was Morticia Addams. So she we had like we weren't the same thing, but I think we had like a good kind of like complimentary vibe going.
Yeah, nice. I saw the pictures that you shared with me, and you two both look fantastic. So they were great costumes.
So yeah, and then we tried to reuse those costumes the next night to hand out candy. We kind of live in we live in like a basement apartment in a 3-story house, and we're in the back of the house. So we decided to go up front where the actual driveway is, get a couple chairs, set out a bowl. What we found out is that our street is not at all conducive to trick-or-treating. So we stayed out there for like an hour and a half, and like 2 people came by. So it was kind of a bummer. And now we have like way too much candy, which I know sounds like a good problem to have, but like, I don't want to be diabetic by the end of November. So like we got to find something to do with this leftover candy because we got like a 250 piece thing.
Did you get yourself the good candy though? Because you should have gotten yourself the good candy in case you had extra.
Oh yeah, okay. No, it's like the Reese's, is the Kit Kat, Almond Joy, like that kind of grouping of stuff.
I can hear Scott.
Kit Kat, not Almond Joy. Almond Joy is for fascists.
I like Almond Joys. I like Mounds better, but I like Almond Joy. I
Oddly
grew up
enough,
on those.
I guess we're like a household of Mussolini's because those are the ones we set aside to not hand out because we wanted them for ourselves.
I'm not gonna
yeah.
lie. I've never had a almond joy or the other one, the Mounds or the Joy. Or I've never.
Well, don't
I
you
don't
all
like
have
coconut. I don't like coconut.
don't you all have a different version of like the coconut filled chocolate bar?
Yeah,
They do, but I don't remember what it is anymore. I used to
can't
have
remember
them.
it. Again, because I won't go near them. A coconut is wrong on so many levels.
This is like but the chocolate though, I feel like this is actually a coconut you might enjoy, because I know my brother-in-law also doesn't like coconut, but he loves the almond joys.
Are you going to
so maybe there's hope.
Are you going to put that in a choo-choo for me, Derek? I'm not having your coconut.
Open up, big guy. The airplane's coming in.
Get your daily dose.
I don't know. We have to sneak it into something, Derek.
It never worked when I was 40. And
We'll put it in the middle of a bag of cheesies.
Yeah, we'll put it in a burger.
Yeah,
yeah, that'll do.
There you go. Yeah, for me, with the candy, I always buy. I know I've said this in past years, but I don't care because I want people to know. But I bought Twizzlers. I always buy Twizzlers because the best Twizzlers that they make are the Halloween Twizzlers. The Halloween Twizzlers, they're hollow. You can like use them as a straw if you wanted to. They're softer than normal Twizzlers. Like the company that makes Twizzlers, they probably think they're cheapening out and like hollowing those things out. And they're like, oh, like we're saving money. No, they're making the best Twizzlers that they have. And so I always hunt for those hollow, soft Twizzlers every year.
I thought we get those year round up here.
No, I don't. I can't get them. I can't get them at. And if there's a listener that's like, "Hey, I know I have the hookup. Let me know." But I can't find them anywhere. They're not at the theaters. They're not at Walmart. They're not at our local grocery store. Maybe I could get them on Amazon. I haven't looked, but I don't think so.
Enough, I used to live in the same town where they made Twizzlers. I don't know if it was like the place, but there was a place in Lancaster County that you always knew like when they were running because you could actually smell Twizzlers when you were driving by.
No, I love that.
I would.
Wow.
You know what? If I had my druthers, I would put coconut and licorice on a pilotless airplane, send it into the sky, and shoot it down.
Now, Scott, does that include, because I hate black licorice. I am not a fan, but I do like what they call quote unquote licorice, but is actually like, a Twizzler technically isn't licorice.
You know what? I can have one, but I've seen people like Jonathan that will just go devour a bag. And I don't get it. Those bags weigh like 5 pounds.
Oh no, I won't stop. And it's like, and I love the Sour Punch straws. Like I would get, and they have the bags with the smaller Sour Punch straws. I will eat like, they have one of those like family size bags at Walmart. I can go through it in a day. Like it's a problem.
And then I'm just thinking of like using it as a straw to drink chocolate milk or something. It just sounds like the most 90s snack ever.
I mean, you could. I don't really. And now I'm jumping over Scott's side. I don't love drinking chocolate milk, or maybe at least not with the Twizzler.
Like a weird combination.
I mean, if you want to, yeah. But if you want to, it's okay.
For a straw for something, it probably wouldn't be chocolate milk.
Well, Derek, yours wouldn't be chocolate milk unless it was like a brown cow or a white Russian or something.
No, it might be a spike chocolate
drank
milk.
a mudslide through his Twizzler.
In that case, it's okay. In that case, it works.
Okay,
Derek.
perfect. Endless options.
Okay, but yes, speaking of Derek, we'll turn it over to you. I know a bit about your what do you call it? Your like 2 weeks leading up to Halloween, but why don't you let everybody know what you did during your Halloween weekend?
Well, luckily I was feeling more myself because the couple weeks leading up to Halloween, I was really out of it. I got like a really nasty, like feverish head cold that I'm still not 100% recovered from, but definitely feel way more like myself than I did 2 weeks ago.
I really thought you were ramping up to say you got COVID. I was gonna be like, what?
No, I don't. No, I don't get out enough for that. So, but
that also sucks because it's like you can't, like with this, you can't even just get sick anymore. Because like I have to imagine when you started getting sick, you're like, uh-oh. Like,
Oh,
am
yeah.
I just sick or am I sick?
That exactly, sick with a capital S. But thankfully it was not that. I got a negative COVID test, did the drive through at Walgreens, and thankfully was able to confirm it wasn't that, but definitely was a little out of it in the weeks leading up to Halloween. But by the time Halloween finally arrived, it was a pretty good day, and just kind of took it easy. I was hanging out with my parents, and my sister and brother-in-law came over, and we all kind of did a last minute pumpkin carving. And I put that pumpkin out there probably like 5 minutes before the trick-or-treaters started to arrive. And so it was kind of a true last minute pumpkin carving, but I'm glad I was able to keep the streak alive and get it out there. And then so throughout the day, it was kind of a mix of watching some football and then watching AMC Fear Fest, which I just love how Fear Fest will play all of the Halloween movies, but it's always like a different combination every year. Like sometimes they'll play Resurrection and H2O all the time. Sometimes it's like 4 and 5, and they'll mix in like the original. And this year they actually were playing the original and then the 1981 Halloween 2 back to back, which it's been a really long time, I think, since I remember them doing that. I remember like Halloween 2, the Rick Rosenthal one, where it like never was on AMC. So for the longest time, like you had to rent it to watch it, but it was kind of fun seeing that on TV this year. And then they were also airing the Rob Zombie movies too, and then H2O as well. So I was watching kind of like bits and pieces of that. And for like every time I watch the Fear Fest marathons, I always seem to see the same scenes over and over. And so I saw like the final 5 minutes of the original Halloween 3 times in the span of 24 hours. And then the opening of Halloween 2, I saw that a few times and just kind of mixed that in there. And then H2O as well. But it felt a little weird because usually I watch Resurrection a couple of times every year, and they didn't really have that in rotation this year. Or at least they did, but not when I was watching. So
they figured people had been through enough over the last 2 years that they weren't going to twist that knife any deeper.
Oh, come on. It's Dangertainment. but no, so then every year my cousins, they'll visit like all the family in the area, and even though they don't like live in the same neighborhood, so they swung by, and my cousin Kate was dressed as a zombie and did a really good job. She did her own makeup and just had like the full on, just looked like a zombie out on the loose. So that was really cool. And then my cousin Gunner was like an army man with a gas mask. So it actually, the costumes went really well together because it looked like he was responding to a zombie infection. So that was really fun to see them. And then that evening, the Vikings played the Cowboys. And so my dad and I watched our own horror movie when the Vikings ended up losing. And in true like Scream fashion, it wasn't like Dak Prescott, who would think would be the Vikings killer. It was actually the backup quarterback who killed the Vikings that night. So it was kind of like our own horror movie in a way that we got to watch that night. So and then it was midnight pretty much. So that was a kind of a low key Halloween, but it was cool to at least feel like I was somewhat conscious for it. So that was nice.
If the NFL was fun at all and wanted to do something like kind of shake things up, whenever they had a Halloween game, they should have it to where each team dresses up as the other team. So like their costume is like they're playing whatever opponent they're playing. I mean, I think that's just an idea begging to be taken, and at no charge to the NFL. Actually, no, those guys have more money than God, so you will have to pay me for that.
It's funny you mentioned that because while they didn't do that idea, and I think that would be really interesting, Justin Jefferson, one of the Vikings wide receivers, he did his warm-ups on the field with a Michael Myers mask on. So I thought that was pretty cool. And he kind of like was walking like him too, which that would take some coordination to actually be able to move around. I mean, I don't know if I could pull that off, but it was kind of cool. I was like, wait, did that really happen? So
sorry. Walking? You need to work on some coordination to walk?
No, there's a specific Michael Myers kind of look and move
and to do that while wearing like full football pads, I think would take some effort.
Yeah,
All right.
It might take me a couple tries. I'm just saying.
I don't
Back
know.
off,
I would be on a Segway anyway, preferably, because that's how I would move around like a slasher. Is I would have my own Segway scooter, and I would that's how I get from point A to point B.
Scott, to put it in terms you can understand, imagine a hockey player having to walk like Michael Myers while on ice skates.
Well, that would be Jason, though, right?
I'm sorry. No, it would be Billy from Black Christmas.
Oh my gosh. Now that's seasonal.
Yes, it is. Indeed.
I missed you, Derek.
Oh, it's good to be back.
Yeah, and we missed you, Scott. Yeah, it's been a while. We haven't caught up much. We've caught up a little bit, but how was your Halloween weekend? What'd you do?
Well, as I do every Halloween for trick-or-treating, I hand out the candy. And as I do every year, I put on my Kirk Cameron costume and I hand out VeggieTales coloring books and pennies. The kids love it. And I get a big kick out of it, because I get to yell out boner all the time, just like he used to on Growing Pains. So that was my Halloween. My Halloween has been at work. I have been sucked into the real world and away from Funtown for far too long. But that's hopefully coming to an end very, very soon. And I'll be able to hang with you guys more and chat with everyone. And yeah, that's what my Halloween was. I don't even think I saw a scary movie on Halloween.
Oh my goodness.
I would imagine some of the stuff you're seeing on those monitors gets pretty scary.
No, I would much rather watch scary movies than stupid people.
Well, the good news is that you can just celebrate virtually with us. So like I said, I'm continuing my Halloween party. My other one is going to be on the 13th of November. So you got, at least from when we're recording, you got 10 days.
All right.
Gonna pass you around on like an iPad or something.
Oh,
this is Scott. That'll be your
like
costume. You'll go as an iPad.
I've been called worse. So
it'll be you, but you're watching William Girdler movies. And you just kind of look at the camera every once in a while.
I'm telling you, my social app, Girdler, there was a lot of interest in that.
You should have registered that domain name.
Let me guess, you take out the E, so it's just GIRDL.
That's how I pictured it. Yeah. You need to make a shirt. You need to make a Girdler shirt.
Yeah, totally.
Swipe
all right. Well, that's it. I'm out. Good night.
Yeah, that sounds like that's it. No, I knew where we were probably heading with yours, so it's okay, Scott. I wish what do you call it? Like I said, I wish you the best in November and plenty of horror movies.
So you saved him for last, so he could sit there and squirm.
No,
and
we're going to discuss things that I have seen, but as far as the Halloween experience, I must say I am that kid sitting eating his ice cream sundae, watching the TV screen of kids playing and having a conversation. That's me. But I'm back, baby.
You're back.
Oh yeah. Well, November is great for like catching up too on. I mean, I know it's nothing quite like the day of, but November is like always the catch up month for horror for a lot of us, and especially with our end of the year list coming up the next month, it's a good time to dig in and catch up on all that stuff.
Year?
But no, that's exactly. Yeah, that's exactly it for me. Like November and December are my like catch up to Heather months, and I won't succeed, but I'm like, I gotta, especially because I kick off our best of the year, and I can't be like, well, my favorite of the year or my favorites include like, the the 5 movies I've seen this year. No, I've actually, to be honest though, I'm very proud of my movie watching this year. And I've been with Christy, I've been marking them all down on a Google Sheets, and we've been rating them.
Oh,
wow.
We've made a serious dent in our movie
Wow.
catalog. So I have a little catching up to do, but I'm not. Some years I'm like, especially last year. Last year was like, I still haven't seen Relic. So
I have not logged on Letterboxd since June 3rd.
Oh my.
But yet I've watched things, but I've thought, it's a thing, it's a to-do. And then that turns in, you do that for a week, and that turns into a month, and here we go. So anyway, long story short, I think Underwater is going to be my favorite pick of the year.
Didn't that come out like 2010? I know. I'm like, I remember when we were doing our favorites list last year, and I'm like, wait, that didn't come out 5 years ago.
Yeah, Underwater is either 1989, 2010, 2017, or it hasn't come out yet. I'm still not sure.
Yeah. Oh yeah, we did an aquatic horror episode on that. That was one of the movies that came out in '89, right?
If we were playing bar trivia, we all got it wrong, probably.
I don't even think the people that made that movie know when it came out anymore.
yeah, this time warp's been weird. I mean, even like, movies I've seen like in October in some cases. Like I watched Midnight Mass. It feels like it was like years ago.
Yeah.
It was like 3 weeks ago.
Yeah.
I've only seen the first episode. I liked it.
You gotta keep watching. Yeah.
But, because you start that, but then you're flicking through the channels and you see Chapelwaite.
Oh, I'm curious about that.
The prequel to Salem's Lot.
Yeah.
Well, you have to check that out 4 episodes later. Wonder what We Do in the Shadows is up to. Oh, and hi, Chucky. Nice to see you again. Like, it's stupid how much quality we have just on TV right now. Like, it's crazy.
It's like a good problem to have, because there's like too much to keep up with, especially by the end of the year. And you almost have to just choose. But then, like you said, it's like a sampler platter. You just want to kind of dive into everything at once. And then you're like, oh, but wait, now I'm 5 episodes behind on this. And I'm 3 episodes, or like Netflix releases everything at once. So I got to watch that before the spoilers come out. And it's like, wow.
Which raises the question, Derek, at what point does it become not a good problem to have?
Yeah,
like,
it's just like,
I'm not kidding. Like it gets to a point, and I think we've touched on this from time to time. I think Jonathan, you've brought it up, where it's like it gets so saturated that like we're gonna lose stuff. Like it's the combination of the amount of stuff and the nature of digital curation or lack thereof means stuff is just gonna like go by the wayside. And I don't really even know what the solution is to that, because you can't just tell people to be like, stop making shit, like, because they're not going to. Nor like could they if they even wanted to at this point. It's wild. It's just so much stuff, and I don't know. Like I don't know, is this like a phase where we're just going to see a ton of stuff, or is this just the standard now? Have we not even seen things peak yet in terms of like quantity? It's just,
I think we also have to blame promotion a little bit too, because if you look at Netflix, stuff will show up on Netflix that they do not advertise at all.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Jonathan's
horror wise.
Yeah,
I know we've talked about that before. Whereas, just as a different example, Shudder, once you're hooked into Shudder, you see their advertising everywhere. Netflix doesn't have that. It's like Netflix doesn't have that concern. Whether you find it or not, it is somewhere in the machine.
Mm-hmm.
Like dive in.
Yeah, I think one of the biggest things I've noticed, at least from my watching habits, and that I know, and just thinking about how I watched movies when I was younger compared to how I imagine people are watching today, is like, I would watch a movie until I broke the VHS. or it was DVD or whatever, like I watch movies dozens of times, and I still.
Granted, that was a different kind of movie, but I don't think we can get into the details on that. Not have the E.
It was Big Trouble in Little China.
Yeah, it was.
That's funny, and I knew as soon as I said it, because I mean it is a true story. We used to, like I said, we'd break a few VHSs. We'd watch them so much, but
for me it was
that's what
Teenage
you're calling
Mutant
it now.
Ninja. For me, it was Turtles Lost in Time, TMNT3.
That's fun. But yeah, so I just, I would watch a movie dozens of times, and, I still do in some cases, but now it's like, I think for a lot of people these days, like you don't have time to revisit a movie that much because like the next thing's already out. So I think that's the first thing probably that's gone and that will, like I said, continue to go away is like, oh, I saw this movie once and like I don't have time to really get back to it because like the next thing's out tomorrow.
Or even if you are like, even if you do rewatch something, there's that voice in the back of your head being like, why are you rewatching this when there's so much other stuff you should be watching right now?
And then there's also that other voice that's like, hey, there's so many great books and like comic books to read too, but then it's like,
and video
good luck
games.
with that.
Yeah.
I don't even have time to listen to those voices.
Yeah. So I think we're all going to just settle into the point eventually, which is like that we won't catch up with everything. That then there is in some cases like maybe like a social like push for everybody to kind of catch up and or comment and like it's gonna have to be okay. And like for people listening or like even just like good advice for myself is like, I don't have to see everything as soon as it's released. I don't have to see everything, and so if I hear something from the three of you that you're like, you can pass on this, like this wasn't good, or like I didn't enjoy it, like, like I might be like, okay, well I can save my time. The difference is though, if all of you rave about something, I'm like, okay, well that moves up on my list.
We're all just beta testers at this point.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
I mean, if you go to Tubi, the horror section on Tubi changes literally every day with new additions.
Oh my gosh.
And ones coming off, but mostly additions. Like they keep ladling in, and it's bizarre because it's Fox that owns it, right? 20th Century?
I believe
right.
so.
Yeah.
Yes.
So they'll put like higher end stuff on there, and then you'll get, Gill Monsters number 6, like something like that below it. It's like there's a lot of junk on Tubi, like and not good junk. But the happy news is it's always been that way. You have to think back to your video store shelves. They were not all gems. They really, really weren't. That's a bit of rose-colored glasses there, I promise you. I bet you the percentage of quality to quantity has never really massively changed and has probably gotten bigger the more that that the floodgates open on consumption, right? That's what I
mean, there was a reason we broke those VHS tapes because the other ones weren't worth seeing again.
Yeah, but I think now with, and Scott, what you mentioned too at the start of this was there's so much good television. There's so many good movies coming out that because we're getting a stronger output of, content in general, we're also seeing, more gems. It's been a really good October. You mentioned What We Do in the Shadows. I mentioned Midnight Mass. Chucky's been excellent. I can't believe how good that is. And there's been so much more. One I'll talk about that's been a little under the radar, but I will recommend is Just Beyond. And that's R.L. Stine's, there's a Boom comic book series. R.L.
Stine, the guy that Derek keeps in his basement.
Yeah, that guy. Right. And so Derek let him out, and he worked with Disney and Seth Grahame-Smith, Mark Webb, and they created this anthology horror show that it's really interesting. I had a lot of fun with it. It definitely strives to have a positive message, And so in that way, I think it really does something that's kind of, well, I think Twilight Zone, can, in some cases it's a cautionary tale. It follows the, quote unquote villain or antagonist. Doesn't always, but sometimes it does. But in the case of Just Beyond, it's definitely more of a positive message. So it's, they always end with like I said, or they always will follow the protagonist. And like I said, tends to lean on the happier side, but it's for kids. But I was pretty impressed with the quality and the social message. They have pretty diverse casts, and I think it's 8 episodes. I think it's about 45 minutes an episode, and it went on Disney Plus. I mean, they've been advertising it a little bit, but I just haven't seen anybody really talking about it. So, for those who are listening, I know a lot of people. I'll hear from time to time. I mean, Derek, I know we've talked about it. You have relatives that are younger. They can't watch everything. What's something good to check out? Well, Just Beyond, I thought was a lot of fun. And it reminds me of Are You Afraid of the Dark? There's definitely some things there that feel like that. But I think this definitely has more social commentary, significantly more. But anyway, so that's, as we kind of move into that direction with this episode, I do want to talk about some of the things that we saw. Like I said, we definitely know, and we can talk about some of the things we already mentioned, but, like I said, a lot of people are talking about Midnight Mass. A lot of people are talking about Halloween Kills, which we can talk about too. But, I think, Just Beyond is something that really, because there's so much out there, was another one of those things that maybe would have gotten more attention on another month, but went under the radar. It's like Night Books, which I've talked about at least in 2 other episodes. It's a really fun movie.
So we're going to talk about it again, because I have since seen it.
Okay. So then I'll turn it over to you.
Night Books. For those who haven't heard us talk about it in the last 2 episodes we were together, Kristen Ritter stars as she's the villain. She is a witch who kind of travels around in this supernatural apartment that can collect children that she will then use to do her bidding, under pain of death. And so we find her through the eyes of a little boy who is kind of going through a bit of a identity crisis. He's a big horror nerd. He loves all the 80s horror movies. They kind of lead into the Lost Boys aspect of it in terms of his background. But you find out early on that there's something has happened that has made him question kind of his love for being kind of a horror fanatic. And that clashes or kind of comes together with the task that Kristen Ritter wants him to do, is to tell her a horror story every night. And she's funny because she kind of acts as, she's kind of like the walking version of like an internet comment section on like a popular horror movie site, where it's nothing but like it's a combination of nitpicking but also demanding more. So I will say I liked it. I think it's good. It's that good gateway horror that we talk about a lot. The one thing, because my wife watched it with me, she's not nearly as big of a horror fan as I am. So it's rare that I get her to kind of join me in some of these things. So she liked it well enough. But one of the things that bothered her, and which she brought it up, kind of bothered me a little bit, is that too many children's or family-centered movies, things that are getting kids into these various genres, are too based in kind of meta references to stuff that people of our generation enjoyed. So like, we love The Lost Boys, but like The Lost Boys is referencing necessarily anything that came before it. It might be influenced by things, but like, it's not directly referencing other things. And so it's a little bit of a bummer that kids aren't really getting that, because so much of the content today has that discussion that's kind of like, I don't know, it's like they're almost saying like, yeah, we want to get the kids in, but we're also drawing in the parents by having these things that they're nostalgic about too. And so, Jonathan, I'd be interested, you've talked about it, you've enjoyed it. What's your take on that? Like, do you see that as an issue at all?
That's a good question. I don't know if I have an opinion on Night Books specifically, but You know, it's something when you mention, I do see frequently, but I've seen frequently like for a while. Like I think about like children's cartoons. And so maybe it's something that I'm kind of used to seeing. So it didn't stand out as much. Like if you watch SpongeBob, there are the references that they'll use in SpongeBob are like, no, like child is going to get it. They do it for the parents. And you know, Teen Titans Go, we've been watching a lot of that. And like same thing, like there's nerdy comic book references that are for like, you know, 5% of the audience. They're dropping movie references. They're spoofing all kinds of stuff. And you can tell that the creative team is having a lot of fun with it. They, you know, because again, it's like, it's a bunch of adults that are working on things for kids. They want to have fun with what they do. So it's almost like in some cases, like Easter eggs or spoofs for them, but it also makes it so that it's fun for adults that are watching it with their kids. Cause otherwise it might get a little boring. So I've seen it with that. And so I guess my gut reaction is like from watching that kind of stuff, like for Night Books, it didn't seem like that bad to me. And also like could be a way that like a parent could be like, hey, like it's, you know, it's Lost Boys. Like we got to watch that next or something like that. Or we got to watch that when you get older, as a kind of way to introduce them to it.
Yeah. And I think it's a thing where it's like, it's the same thing with Stranger Things, where it's like, these things could stand on their own without having to lean into the nostalgia factor. Like I fell off of Stranger Things just because I thought they just leaned too heavily into it, but there was a lot of good stuff there. And I think the same can be said for Night Books. There's a lot of really good stuff in it, but it kind of gets a little bit pushed by the wayside. And I think there's also a sense of like me being grumpy about the fact of like how easily, I don't want to say duped I am, but drawn in by like literally all they had to do was have like a 2-minute clip of the Lost Boys and play one of the Lost Boys songs in the background. I'm like, oh, this is awesome. And I'm like, is that's all it takes? Like, am I that easy? And I guess so.
Interesting. So I almost like, I feel like you should give yourself a pass on this. And I feel like this movie gets a pass because I see things as a little different when they're like done for product's sake versus what I think is probably done by the creative team lovingly. Like, you know, you'll see some movies where like, well, they'll reboot it and they use the same kind of feelings as the originals without changing the story too much as a way to kind of, you know, get you in with a soft reboot. And we see that a lot. Or we do have things with like, you know, we do have things that are like have very similar feelings, you know, like, I don't know, like what you mentioned with Stranger Things. Like those things are meant to elicit certain responses. They're following certain beats that you've seen before. Not to say this is wholly original. I just think that the Lost Boys piece in general is more of like a loving homage, or like they're throwing it in there and they're not necessarily trying to trick you. Like it totally could have been without the Lost Boys and the movie would have worked completely. To me, it was a fun Easter egg and it didn't make or break the movie. So I felt it was harmless. And I don't really love the Lost Boys as much as some other people here. I'm looking at you, Derek. So for me, it was like, oh, they have the Lost Boys. I was like, oh, the Lost Boys. Cause like, I like it. I don't love it.
Well, I 100% agree that it's not necessarily something that they were doing as like a gimmick or, you know, it was nothing cynical about it, but it's almost like, it's a generation of people, of which I am a part, of people who grew up like quoting pop culture, and that's bled into the way we create our own pop culture now. Like it's the cinematic equivalent of like quoting the Lost Boys. They just put it in the movie. And it's weird because I'm kind of like get off my lawning about my own generation. But I don't know. It's just, it's something that, and again, I gave Night Books, like, I think I letterboxed it like 3 stars. Like it was a good movie, but it was just something that, you know, when it was pointed out to me, I was like, oh yeah, that's something to consider.
Yeah. It's interesting. I mean, you know, I go back to like Fright Night, and like I like that they had the fictional show for Peter Vincent, and I do appreciate kind of when they build their own universe with movies and shows or things like that.
Mhm.
So yeah, like I said, I totally get that. I don't like. I think I'd probably give the movie the same thing. It was like, I think it was a lot of fun. I think it was good for kids, but like, you know, yeah, I would agree with it 3 out of 5. But yeah, that's an interesting point.
All I know is I got to see this movie now because the Lost Boys is in it.
Yeah, we did mention it before, and yeah, you are definitely you definitely need to see it.
And
It's
Chiverches does a really good cover of Cry Little Sister for it.
oh my gosh. Okay, sold. See how horrible I am.
Proving Brian's point.
Right, I know. I'm like, I'm the problem. I'm part of this machine.
That's funny. Well, speaking of, over to you, Derek. What have you watched
Speaking of
this?
problems.
Yeah, speaking of problems. Speaking of machines, Derek, what have you been watching? What's special? What's worth telling our listeners about in October?
Well, even though I did feel like I was on death's doorstep for a good portion of October, we did manage to do our 18th annual Scary Movie Marathon with the Cul-de-sac Gang, albeit virtually for the second year in a row, just because I didn't want to get everyone sick, and we were going to meet a new baby in the group as well, and I definitely didn't want to get the baby sick. So we did it through Zoom, and because of Zoom, we kind of just do 2 movies rather than the usual 3, just because, like, I don't know, there's just something about the virtual. You don't want people to get too burnt out on kind of doing 3 in a row virtually, as opposed to like if we're all in person and kind of chatting and in between movies and that. So we still did a fun double feature though. So we always do like what we call a classic horror movie. And usually we do it from like this 50 movie pack that I got for like Christmas, like years ago, like probably 15 years ago. But because we needed something to stream, we went to the always reliable Prime Video, and we chose 1963's The Terror, which I did not realize had about 7 directors, but was kind of known as a Roger Corman movie and stars a very young Jack Nicholson, and Boris Karloff is also co-starring. So that one I kind of vaguely remember hearing about it, but didn't really know what to expect. But kind of the basic premise is Jack Nicholson is like this soldier in the French army, and this is in the early 1800s, and he gets separated from his regiment and ends up stumbling into this really old Gothic castle, where he may or may not be seeing a ghost woman, and who keeps appearing to him and then disappearing. And then meanwhile, Boris Karloff is hanging out and basically saying, you got to get out of here. I have a secret past, and you don't want to find out what that is. And also Dick Miller, a young Dick Miller, also co-stars as the Boris Karloff's right-hand man. So that was a lot of fun. It was very, very interesting. It was kind of all over the place, but in a good way, and a little more gory than I expected. There was some eye gouging, there was some face melting, and it was just very, very bizarre to like watch such a young Jack Nicholson and then realize that like 20 years after this, he's going to do The Shining. So it was interesting. I'd been wanting to watch that for a while, so it was fun to see that one.
I think you're probably, because you're such a sweet guy, you're being very kind to that movie. The Terror is some B-roll that accidentally got developed.
Oh my gosh.
It's a cobbled together mishmash, because when you got the castle for an extra day, you might as well make use of it.
Well,
that's essentially what the movie's. No, it's not the worst movie ever made, that's for sure. But yeah, it's something else.
Yeah. I think they could make a movie about the making of this movie, because you had like Francis Ford Coppola came in and directed for a little bit. Jack Nicholson directed for like a day or two. Roger Corman, like, from the sounds of it, there was just a lot going on behind the scenes. So I'm still going down the Wikipedia rabbit hole on that one. But so that was movie number one. So then we always try to do like a more modern movie. We used to do like a lot of the 80s slasher movies, but we kind of worked our way through the main franchises. So in recent years, we've done more recent films, and we kind of try to pick something that we know will scare the friends in our cul-de-sac group. And this second movie then that we chose was Hellfest from 2018. And I had actually not seen this one yet. I had really wanted to see it when it came out. I never got around to watching it. And I figured you couldn't go wrong.
And it was on my best of list. Keep going.
Right, exactly. I mean, I knew that it helped that I knew like Scott, and I know Heather really enjoys it, and a lot of people I've seen on Twitter have enjoyed it. So we watched Hellfest as movie number 2, and that was a lot of fun. And yeah, the production design was really cool. I really dug the cast. I'm a fan of several of the cast members from other projects, and then of course you have the legendary Tony Todd. So it was really cool, just because I know we kind of grew up going to haunted attractions. So as a group of friends, so it's kind of fun to watch like what would happen if we had been, hunted by a serial killer in a haunted attraction. And I feel, comparing it to, I know Jonathan and I were kind of talking about, I think I might like Haunt better as like a haunted house movie where things go wrong, or like The House is October Built. But I still had a lot of fun with this one. And there was definitely, even though I thought I knew where it was going, it still managed to surprise me in a couple of spots with some of the death scenes. So that was our movie number 2, and that was our lineup for the 18th annual Scary Movie Marathon, which is starting to make me feel a little old hearing how that number keeps going up.
Well, part of me wants to think that you're going to get through, like you're going to do enough of these that you're going to get through that 50 movie DVD
right?
you have. It'll be like, the 50th annual cul-de-sac crew get together, and you'll all be on like Rascals or Walkers or whatever.
Yeah, that's the goal, right? It's like that's my main goal.
Is it a Milk Creek's? Was it a Milk Creek special?
Oh, like where they packaged it all together.
I think it was pre-Milk
like movies.
It was pre-Milk Creek.
But I think it, where I think it came from was, like on Black Friday, if you go to like Menards and there's the end of the aisle like specials for sale, I think that it was one of those like box sets that you would find like on the day after Thanksgiving at Menards. So it was, and it's truly like there's like, of course there's like really well-known stuff like the Phantom of the Opera in there and The Last Man on Earth. But then there's also like really obscure movies. And I think there's like The Last Woman on Earth and Atom Age Vampire and just stuff all over the place. So it's kind of a really, I'll have to look into that and see like who put this together, because there's no rhyme or reason to it.
I heard, don't quote me, but I heard that on one of these packs, one of them has Night of the Living Dead. Is that true?
Whoa.
Yes, I think
that's oh my God.
I think that is true. I think
that's
that is
a holy
true.
grail.
Oh, wow.
I love the Milk Creek sets because it's 50 movies, and what do they package them in? Sleeves. Here you go.
Yes.
Up yours. Do with them what you like. I don't care.
I know. What
do you want for $20? Shut up. You got 50 movies for $20. You get sleeves.
Yeah, there's some gems in there though. They usually package it with what Satanic Rites of Dracula usually appears in those boxes.
There is some good stuff in there.
Yeah,
and that's the charm of it too.
And
is
the
like
terror.
Yeah. And yeah, so that was it was fun to be able to still sneak that in virtually. And then so yeah, that was what we watched. We did that the weekend before Halloween. Now the weekend of Halloween, actually the night before Halloween, I watched a even more recent movie, and I think Scott, you watched this one too, and that is the new Slumber Party Massacre movie.
That is right. Thank you for reminding me. Yes, go ahead.
Well, I was really excited to watch it. So another confessional here is that I actually haven't seen the original Slumber Party Massacre yet. So I came into this. I'm very familiar with the franchise. I mean, we've covered Blu-ray releases for it on Daily Dead. I've seen clips, I've seen the trailers, but never actually watched it properly. So
Eric, you know the Corpse Club rules. Now you have to pack a bag. Don't tell anyone where you're going. And you have to just disappear, man. That's one of the movies that you have to see.
I know. And I have it on DVD and Blu-ray. So there's really no excuse.
The car's outside your house right now. I'm sorry, man.
I hear the engine running. I gotta go. But that being said, though, so I came into this kind of as just a super casual, like new member of this new introductionist to this franchise, and I still had a lot of fun. The kills, I mean, and this aired on the Sci-Fi Channel. I know it also premiered at South by Southwest. Go to Daily Dead to read Heather's awesome review for the movie. And so I watched it on Sci-Fi Channel. They did not hold back on the gore. There was some insane kills in it. But the humor was great. The message behind it was great. There's just so many layers to it that you really think you know where it's going, and it does a complete 180 and then some multiple times. So it was a lot of fun. I think you enjoyed it as well, Scott.
I think I probably maybe even enjoyed it more than you did, and that's because of the original film. When you see the original film and then see this, it becomes even better. I can only imagine what it's like to see it as a standalone and enjoy it.
Right.
But the connective tissue and the conversation that this movie has with the original movie and movies of that time and that ilk. And like you said, it's very, very funny. The performances are a lot of fun. Like you said, there's some great kills in it, but it was one of those movies where as it went on, it does the unexpected, and not in a bad way. It does the unexpected, and it takes it to a place where you want to see it go. I think it's really well written. I think it's really well directed, acted, especially the writing. The writing is it's so good. I can't imagine if you were making a sequel or a reboot of this movie, I couldn't have imagined that it would be this movie. And I can't imagine that they could have made it like any better.
Nice. Now, should I watch all three? Because are there references to all three original movies in the new one?
You know what? It's been so long since I've seen the third, but yes, one of the just to tease those who haven't seen it, one of the campers, as it were, fights the killer with the guitar from number 2.
Yeah, and you do need to see the second one. The second one's definitely worth it. It's special in its own way.
I remember that was when I stumbled on just watching one of the live feeds on Shudder, and I just fell in love with part 2. I still haven't seen. I've seen the original 1 and 2. I still haven't seen this remake. I really want to see it. It's through Sci-Fi, right?
Yeah.
Do they have, because I think that's like Chucky is doing, like it's a dual Sci-Fi /USA thing. Do either one of those like have a streaming service where they're playing, or do you need to rent that from elsewhere?
Check Prime as well for Slumber Party Massacre.
And I think it's all owned by Universal, I would think maybe Peacock as well.
That's right.
Peacock didn't have it when last I
Okay.
looked, but there is like a sci-fi app they've been linking people to. I don't have the app. I purchased it for under Amazon because I had the couple episodes on YouTube, and I was like, oh well, I'll just watch it on YouTube, and then it stopped. But also, I want to support the creators, so yeah, so we just picked it up.
Nice.
But yeah, I would expect. You would think it would be on Peacock, but Peacock just is still, like I said, they're still kind of in their infancy.
Yeah, I'm actually literally checking now, and no Slumber Party Massacre and no Chucky, although they do have Bride, Seed, Curse, and Cult on there.
Yes.
And it was the new movie was like a production with Shout Factory Studios, so I believe
That is true.
there'll be like a nice Shout, or probably a nice Scream Factory release at some point, hopefully sooner rather than later, with so people that didn't see the broadcast can watch it, and maybe even more like extended, or who knows what goodies they'll have on that.
Apparently,
But I would expect that.
Apparently, the VOD one is different than the broadcast, but
Oh, really?
don't quote me on that. But I believe that's what I read.
Okay, well, interesting, because they did not. I mean, there was moments where they could have cut away, and they went there. So it was.
Yeah, it might be minor, but I do believe that there's additional footage. I may have to retract this, but
Yeah.
I believe it's what I read online.
Very cool.
Yeah. So
yeah, sci-fi's been killing it this Halloween season.
Yeah, for sure.
You mean like Steve Miner? Like Steve Miner, who directed one of the Halloween movies? Sorry, if we weren't ready to go there yet.
Whoa.
I think
It's a hell of a segue.
It is. So Scott, about Halloween,
yes.
Is there anything that you'd like to talk about?
Have you guys seen this movie, Halloween Kills?
Evil Dies Tonight. Evil Dies Tonight. Sorry, I couldn't help myself.
It's contagious.
Why, yes, Scott. I have. I believe we all have seen Halloween Kills.
Then I think this is the first opportunity that we've had to discuss it. So I'm beside myself for many reasons.
Before we get started, let me just issue the blanket spoiler warning. This way we don't have to worry about it. A lot of people have seen Halloween Kills. It's been a few weeks. So yeah, we can spoil away.
Okay. I don't know what I will be spoiling here, but okay, I'll go with initial reaction first. The initial reaction is one ongoing as one is watching Halloween Kills. I thought, Evil Dies Tonight. Okay, here's the thing. Halloween Kills is a tremendously entertaining movie. Halloween Kills is a tremendously entertaining Halloween movie. I think Halloween Kills does not belong with this trilogy. I don't know where it goes from here, gang. I honestly have no idea. The first movie was certainly more tempered and somber. Kind of a remains of the day compared to Halloween Kills, let's say Animal House. It's a wild movie. The kills are very mean and very gory, and very good. Michael Myers cuts quite an impression in this movie. But here we go. The dialogue is cringy bad, and I think on purpose. And that's why I think I don't know that this movie. I don't know what the third part. I don't know how Halloween ends, guys, because tonally we have two totally different movies here. And so I'm certainly not in the camp of I hated it. There are many things that I like and love about it, but
not for, I don't think, the reasons that they necessarily intended.
Well, or they're rolling,
or maybe
they're rolling the dice and they're thinking, let's have some fun here, and it went overboard, or they're doing a winking nod to the quote unquote bad slasher movies of the early 80s, but it just falls flat for me. So it's a great looking movie. The kills are fantastic. By the way, the score is probably my favorite of the Halloweens. I thought it was amazing. I thought the score was next level in this one, and I can hardly wait to watch it again because it's incredibly entertaining. But I think only time will tell by next year. But I don't know if this movie belongs in this trilogy. We'll find out.
It's a movie that makes so many capital C choices, and I would argue ultimately wrong choices for whatever they were going for. But it does them with such gusto that it almost comes around the other end and makes me like it because of just how wrong they took it. Like, and I agree, Scott, where like, you know, the last Halloween, Halloween 2018, was at least in the realm of the Halloween franchise in terms of it was very deliberate. It was very not static, but it was, you know, it fell in line with what in some ways made the first one good, by, you know, he is this just kind of like stalking, stable killing machine that goes through Haddonfield and wreaks havoc. But the style and the aesthetic of this one, with like multiple zooms and just like cuts and over the top dialogue, just goes into almost like weird German abstract like expressionism, and it's so weird, and they do so many weird callbacks that just like part of why I don't mind this movie is because I'm not really as emotionally invested in this series as I might be as, say, like Hellraiser or even Friday the 13th. These I like Halloween movies, but like I don't have that, like, you know, they don't kind of like dwell in my essence the way other series might. And so when they took this weird turn, like it didn't feel like they were they weren't like betraying anything for me. But if someone who really loves this series saw this, I can see why they would be like, what the hell have you done?
Sorry,
Yeah.
I was just gonna say, real quick, my you know the meme with Louis Dreyfus as the president,
like,
she's laughing and saying, "What the fuck?" When Tommy is giving his introduction in the bar and he introduces each character with a little paragraph about who they are. That was it literally popped in my head, that meme of Julie Louis Dreyfus, like, what the fuck?
I will never, like, I know the whole, you know, the various memes of Evil Dies Tonight have already been driven into the ground, but I cannot see that scene in the hospital where Anthony Michael Hall as Tommy Doyle like shouts something, starts leaving the hospital, and then almost as if he forgets to say it, turns around and yells back in, "Evil dies tonight." Like, that will never not be funny to me. It is probably the funniest line in a horror movie that I've seen this year. And it's just, I think, completely emblematic of the whole movie. I think the only like actual disturbing wrong take they take for me is the whole the resolution to the other inmate from the institution that they drive to essentially commit suicide in like very horrible graphic fashion. Like that, what the hell were they doing there? Like, I'm sure they're trying to make some kind of a statement, but it just turned the proceedings very dour.
Yeah, it's, you know, I do love this franchise, but I also am someone who really enjoys Halloween Resurrection. I enjoy Halloween 5. So take this as you will, but it's so, I think, when you take it, like if you took it separately from Halloween 2018, that's the real surprise thing, is that, you know, that, like you mentioned, Scott, like that went a certain way, and this kind of goes and does its own thing. And this one, I would say, definitely, it feels more like in the realm of the Rob Zombie films, in the, in regards to still different creative visions, but in regards to not holding back on the violence, and kind of like how Zombie would always introduce these characters and you'd get little slices of life with them and then they die horribly. Like it kind of feels like they took a lot of elements from the Rob Zombie movies and then made their own movie with that kind of blueprint. And I feel like the fascinating thing about this movie is that it's made people, more than any horror movie in a long time that I can think of, reassess all the other movies in the franchise. I've seen more people come out with their love for H2O, or more people, kind of reassessing the Rob Zombie movies and saying, hey, there's actually a lot to enjoy here. And I always enjoyed those movies to begin with. I kind of see it as everyone kind of comes into the sandbox and they build their own sandcastle. And that's, you'll always have the original. You always have Season of the Witch. You always have, like, one doesn't destroy the other. But the interesting thing about this is that because it is number 2 in a known trilogy, like, we don't know, like, what does this do to the previous movie and where do they go from here, especially considering how, 2018 Halloween was so much about Michael Myers. He just, we don't need to know what drives him. It was kind of like there was this big push to get away from the Cult of Thorn and everything like that. Well, now it's like maybe there is something supernatural driving him. And there's, like, I almost feel like I can't fully assess this movie until I see Halloween Ends, because I don't know some of the most pivotal points of the movie. I don't know fully what is the meaning behind them until they pull back the curtain on what they're going to do in the next movie, as far as, is there something supernatural about the house? Is the mask possessed? Like, is Michael Myers even of this world? Like, there's so many, like, they like took the Halloween 4 and 5 and 6 playbook with the Man in Black and the Cult of Thorn, and they like doubled down on it after kind of moving in this other direction in the 2018 movie. So I almost feel like I get it's totally all over the place. It's I still had a lot of fun with it. Maybe fun is not the right word, because it is very gruesome at times, but it's, like you said, there's some big choices in there and not all of them work. And it's going to be interesting to see how they move forward from here. But yeah, it's a Halloween movie, all right, but a different one than I think we all expected.
I think anyone who shits on Rob Zombie's dialogue needs to watch that bar scene again and have Tommy Doyle introduce, and this is Lonnie. Lonnie used to bully me, but then we became friends. Evil dies tonight.
So I'm not as we've established in other episodes, I'm not the biggest like Halloween franchise fan. I love a lot of the movies. I don't revisit a lot of the other sequels. But I haven't had a lot of people to talk to about this, and I've missed you all. We haven't caught up as much. So just to make sure that we're all on the same page here, because the impression I had after watching Halloween Kills, and this is to go off of Derek's comment, is he's supernatural at this point. Like, that's like, to me, it was definitive. Like, he should not have gotten back up. They hit him enough times. He was shot. He was stabbed. Like, to me, it established that he is
totally.
Yeah, he's totally supernatural at this point. Is that the impression that you had, Bryan and Derek?
I think they're still trying to kind of have their cake and eat it too. Like, it's this, like, because I also don't know, like, are we trying to say like his body? Because again, we're getting into spoiler territory here.
Yeah, and that's fine.
It ends with, well, first of all, there's the same old, argument about like, yeah, the crowd finally gangs up on him and quote unquote kills him. But like, they're going to be satisfied after what they've seen him do with stabbing him in the back and say like, that's good. Like,
but don't they also, they shoot him like 3 times in the chest?
Yeah, but that's like when you're dealing with someone like that, like you keep going until he is a greasy spot in the road.
I did mention that. I'm like, well, you decapitate him.
Yes, exactly. You do what Jamie Lee Curtis did at the end of H2O, and you end it.
But just
and
don't
then he
make
turns
sure
out to
they
be
don't
an
switch
ambulance
around
driver.
the. Yeah, exactly.
And then you just make sure that a dog doesn't pee on where his body's buried and then bring him back.
God. So, but my question is, are we to believe that time passes and he gets up and goes and kills Laurie Strode's daughter, or does he basically just like teleport from the road to that room and kill her?
No,
like,
I think we have determined he is unstoppable.
Mm-hmm. But he doesn't have teleportation.
But he doesn't,
Yeah.
he doesn't burn so well. Make him supernatural. That's fine. Listen, from the start, John Carpenter said he's evil. He's the boogeyman.
And that's another weird decision they're making, though, too, is that they're almost the supernatural. Like, if he is supernatural, it's also manifesting itself the same way that like it does to the town of Derry, where like the way people are acting is almost like they're infected.
And that's what that's what they're suggesting. They're fueling him.
Oh my God! What if this becomes a Find the Book movie? You must find the book. I will watch any movie that utters the words "You must find the book." They're the best MacGuffins. Every mystery adventure movie. You must find the book to find the key to. It's all about the book.
Well, what I'm really curious about too is that, if we're to believe that, it wasn't just adrenaline or being really tired, but if Judy Greer's character Karen really did see Michael as a boy in the window, and there's kind of like a lot of the movie is centered around Michael's going back to that house. Like Michael has come home. Michael is, and yeah, exactly. And then also the whole story about he spent so much time in that window, and then there's so much time in the movie revolves around the house itself. And if she did see him as a boy on, a night where obviously that couldn't, without supernatural interference, that couldn't happen. Maybe the house itself is evil because that's where everything is kind of revolving around. And so that's what I'm curious about too.
Can you imagine how bad people are going to lose their mind if it's like the house has infected him or something like that?
and back to, what Scott was saying, like, yeah. And Derek, like, I have no idea where this is going to go. I mean, I enjoyed it.
I loved it, but it's not good. But I loved it. Yeah,
to me, it's pure camp. Like Derek, you mentioned that it was gruesome and that maybe you shouldn't be laughing as much. But honestly, when I was watching it with Christy, I was laughing through a lot of it when he's fighting, because some of it, like, and I guess one of the things I'm always interested. I love the creative process and how like so much changes throughout the making of the movie, from the script and in the edit and reshoots, and like I wonder if they knew they were going for this tone from the very beginning, or this is the tone they ended with. But either way,
well, Jonathan, you had a really good point that you made when we were talking offline in terms of like, it seems like this kind of took a Rise of Skywalker direction in terms of like they were going one way. You said that like they probably realized it wasn't working, and so they pivoted, but like they didn't really go back and cover their tracks. So it's just like a big mess.
Oh, well, that's a good point. Yeah, I totally forgot about that one item. But yeah, it's which I'll bring up now. But yeah, it's like movie making's alchemy. And so like you can see, like, as and like I said, so something may not work. They may shoot alternates. They may cut things together. And that's how you make movies. But you always will find occasionally like little orphaned pieces. And I mean, to me, like one thing was like them leaving the knife for Laurie Strode, like her granddaughter leaves it there, leaves it next to the bed. Like they focus on it. Like, that knife is going to be used. That knife doesn't get used. Like maybe they'll use it in the next movie. I don't think so, because they're doing a time jump. But it's like little things like that kind of signal to me that like maybe there's an alternate take here. Maybe they wanted to use Laurie a little bit more, because they do end up, which I think one of the interesting things is they do end up sidelining her. And for as
in the hospital again.
yeah.
Let's forget Halloween 2 by doing the same thing they did in Halloween 2.
Yeah, and but for as much of a focus, and I think so much of, I know some people had, you know, problems with 2018, but so much of that worked. Like it seemed like in general, audiences really enjoyed it, took a more grounded approach. They talked about how it really focuses on this trauma. So I think for me, and a lot of people, it's so jarring for them to then go to the second one. And I don't even feel like I can fairly assess either movie until I see the third one. Well, I'm like, you know, now that it could go anywhere, like,
Yeah,
like, you know,
I think that's where we're all at. Is
exactly.
And that, you know what? And screw it. That's kind of exciting because I'm like, I literally have no expectations. All I know is that I want to see Halloween Kills in the privacy of my home, blast in the stereo, you know, bring it on. It's a very entertaining movie. Now, here's a question. Is Will Patton in Halloween Kills, are his legs broken?
Right. Yep, exactly. Because he was run over by the car in addition to being stabbed in the neck, right?
We watched Halloween after Halloween Kills, and that was the first time we noticed it. Right. It's like, oh damn, they like Sartain like crushes his fucking legs.
Yeah,
I'm like, he better not be up and running around in Halloween Ends.
Well, that I remember specifically.
There'll be that time jump
showing that.
Oh, the time jump! Thank you, Brian.
Yeah,
if I had my glasses on, I would push them back up and go, no, you're absolutely correct. I forgot about the 4 years plus the 2, the time jump. Yes, of course. How silly of me.
And the fact that they do address, like, when talking about Halloween Ends and talking about how, like, the things we've been through in those years, like the pandemic, if they try and bring, and Scott, you've already done it twice, so I can say it, if they bring the fucking pandemic into a Halloween movie, it's either going to be the most awful thing in the world, or it's going to wind up like this one, just turning it into like some transcendent campy mess.
Well, I wonder, and I know they didn't do it at the time, but yeah, I do wonder if like the Halloween Ends is really like people stopping, like not celebrating Halloween as much. Like we noticed, and we talked about this, like that we saw significantly less trick-or-treaters this year, like significantly less. Of course, there were a lot less last time. And I remembered that like after 9/11, like there were like trick-or-treating was like, it like barely happened. People weren't going out. They were like staying in, they were doing their own thing. So I do wonder if like they're going to play on that a little bit, even if they're not using the pandemic specifically, but like people's fear of Michael Myers. Because if we're doing a time jump, unless they've been dealing with him every year, which is a possibility, you know, he's still out there.
It's going to be, and all the children of Haddonfield, except for one, have been killed.
It'd be like what do you call it? Freddy's dead.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Well,
so
yeah,
shoot for the stars, kids.
Yeah. So we'll see. But yeah, I mean, they have an instant ticket purchase from me. I mean, I'll be sitting in a theater watching Halloween Ends. So,
but now there's this added level of anticipation. Like before it was like, oh, a new Halloween movie, that's really cool, and now I'm almost like, I have to see like how they
what the hell is this gonna be.
Listen,
like
if Halloween Kills is the pin rattling on the roller coaster wheel as it heads up to the top, then I say fuck it and just pull it and go all out for Halloween Ends.
Well, what I'm thinking is, what if this is ride? Like Michael Myers versus Freddy. Like, let's go.
Well, I mean within that. Like,
yeah, no, but that's where you go. That's where you go from here, right? You make it a secret crossover, because where else do you go from here?
Well, if we're gonna do a crossover, it like, let's not tread like Freddy or Jason ground. Like, have it be like Leatherface comes to town.
No one picks Pinhead. Please pick Pinhead.
Aw. Yeah, that would be cool.
Hellraiser is not a slasher movie, okay?
Please pick Pinhead. I promise your pain will be legendary. I promise.
You're a pinhead. You suck.
Love Pinhead, man. Looking forward to the new one, by the way. It is shaping up
Oh
nicely.
yeah. Yep.
Can,
Yep.
Mhm.
can I say I've been on the record about like how I don't want this series to hurt me anymore, so I don't look forward to any new installments. When they gave the news about, oh God, I forget her name,
Jamie Clayton.
Jamie Clayton. When I heard that they cast
Jamie
a
Clayton.
trans woman and Jamie Clayton as Pinhead, I'm all in, because my worry with this was that it was going to be like the sterilized movie that took all of the queerness out and just made it about like, the cool looking monsters. This move has me so much more, I would say cautiously optimistic, but I've decided to throw caution to the wind. I am just optimistic about this movie. I can't wait to see how it comes together.
Yeah. Well, first of all, it's no longer an IP sucking series, right? This is made by people who want to tell this story. This isn't made by a company that just wants to hold on to the rights to the character. So they put a guy with he looks like a ham at a buffet with toothpicks sticking out of him. Right? This looks like it's made by and with Clive Barker's direct involvement as well.
Yeah.
It's going to have I think the sexiness and the danger that was there in the beginning will be back.
Plus,
I
it also
think,
just
Yeah.
makes me so happy that this casting decision pissed off so many dudes who who clearly didn't get the original in the first place. It's upset them, so that's also a green check in my book.
Well, the amount of people that have been saying that there's no like queer like subtext in Chucky, I'm like, what? And people are like, yeah, we don't. They were saying to Joe on Bloody about, they were complaining about how he's throwing all like his woke article, and I'm like, and I do realize like how many people just think that what they're looking at is that it's not creators trying to tell more, but there's like so many examples of it. Like I don't understand how you watch something like Twilight Zone and don't see the message coming from it. And
Willful ignorance.
Or, in the case of Chucky, if you see a story about two queer teenage boys, it's not subtext. That we call that text. It's a story about two queer boys. So
yeah,
it's
so
not
I don't
woke. It's not woke.
No, I don't. Like I said, I don't get it.
It's not propaganda. It's a story about two people.
I mean, I think for me,
Exactly.
Chucky has been like, I don't know, for my October, like I've seen a lot of great things, but like Chucky's wowing me every single episode. I mean, like I can't wait for the next one to come out. It's just, I mean, it's so well put together. And, sometimes when you hear about something coming to TV, you're like, oh, I don't know, but this has been nothing but excellent. And like, we're going to get movies worth of new, Chucky stories. And, yeah, like I said, 4 episodes in, I am loving it. If you haven't had a chance to check it out, like that's my top recommendation for October.
Totally. And I'm only, 2 episodes in. It's wonderfully written. The leads are very sympathetic. Chucky is a blast. In the second, I won't, no spoilers, but in the second episode during a school talent show, Chucky gives a dress down from the stage to several people in the audience that conjures like 2 things for me: The Simpsons and Brian De Palma, and it's as wonderful as both. It's terrific. Don Mancini has, he's the heart and the soul of this, and when he's not involved, you get something completely different. But when he's at the helm like this, my God, it's just like you said, Jonathan, this opens up a whole, Chucky universe, as it will. There's a million stories that we didn't even think about that could be told.
Yeah, and and we talked about it a little bit on our standalone episode, but like the Chucky franchise, it's easily one of the strongest franchises, if not strongest horror franchise, in that, aside from the reboot that MGM put out, which, that movie was fine, but I'm just, it's not in the same discussion as these. Like, they've been able to go like story to story or like movie to movie with, continuing the story, bringing characters back, like tying it together, like no reboots, no ejecting of story elements. And we're likely to see all of it continue to tie together even more in the show. Like, it's been going for decades. It's something that, Freddy, Jason, Michael Myers, they haven't been able to do. So to see Chucky, it's impressive.
Scott and I would interject that there's at least one other franchise that has been able to keep it going for that long.
Yes. But a very close second,
Mm-hmm.
very, very close.
Mm-hmm. And I'll use that to certainly plug a couple of things here. That's an excellent segue. I think we're at a good point now. I think we can hang up our hats and we can close this episode out. But before we do, I did want to recommend some excellent episodes and some articles on Daily Dead. And one of the big things is that, Scott and Bryan, they wrapped up their Phantasm retrospective series of Corpse Club episodes in October. And so if you haven't given them a listen, please do. They are diehard fans. It's some excellent discussion. They have some wonderful guests, and yeah, congrats guys. It was great. And it wrapped up in October.
Thank you very much. We had a blast.
Definitely. And if you're wondering how diehard we are, we both deeply love Ravager. So that should tell you how much we love this series.
That's right. Plus, I have a tattoo.
That too. Yeah, you do. And of course we have, Heather was holding down the fort for a lot of October, so we really appreciate it. She has, a couple of interview episodes. Her and Patrick get back together for Horror BFFs, where they talk about Rob Zombie's Halloween movies. So you can continue the Halloween discussion there if you haven't listened to it. And then, there's a great series of, or a great number of articles throughout October. A lot of stuff that I'm really proud of from, our main and longstanding team, brand new writers. So, I do suggest hitting up dailydead.com and going through our features backlog. We're going to continue to make some updates. If you go to the homepage now, you'll see a few extra sections that we added. It, calls out Scott's Drive-In Dust Off, Bryan's Let's Scare Bryan to Death, and Heather's Practically Perfect, among others. But like I said, it's almost. I'll digress here a minute, because it's interesting that, similar to what we were talking about for movies, where you have lost movies, it also tends to happen with articles. There are so many great retrospectives, across all kinds of entertainment sites and passionate people who have excellent interviews. And so something that we're striving to do is help call those things out. We have 11 years. It might be by the time you listen to this, it's 11 years. So it's been 11 years of Daily Dead. So I'll take a minute and get on my soapbox, but it's been 11 years of Daily Dead. And so we have so many, great articles from great contributors. And so we're going to continue to call those out, put those things on the homepage, rotate them in and out. So I'd strongly suggest seeking them out. Taking a look. And like I said, if you're like, hey, why don't you write about this? Chances are in a lot of cases, like we just did it 5 or 6 years ago. And so it's, how do you surface that kind of stuff? And that's a problem that all sites tend to face, but definitely something we want to call out more of.
Join us.
Yeah, exactly. So join us. But it's been great getting back together with you guys. And we do miss Tamika. She will be joining us soon. She was unable to join us today. But yeah, she'll be back soon. And so with that, this episode of Corpse Club has come to an end. I want to thank Bryan, as always, our engineer, for helping us out each and every episode. And as always, we want to thank our listeners too, including those of you who have signed up for a Corpse Club membership. If you go to corpseclub.com, you can check out our latest episode, all of our back episodes, and you can also sign up to become a member. We have a membership card, t-shirt. You can pick an episode topic. And if you want to hear us talk more about Halloween kills, we can do it. We may not want to do it for an entire episode. Maybe some of you do, but we can do it.
Speaking of which, members, get to us on this episode topic stuff. Like it's work coming up with episode topics. Like, we know you're out there, members. We want to hear from you.
We're idiots. We're not idea people. Trust me.
Like if you're worried because we're going to be like, oh, that's a stupid idea, we're not doing it. Odds are we'll be like, oh God, we just never thought of it. So
tell us to watch it. We will watch it and talk about it, but you have to tell us what it is, because all of my forks have corks on them.
There you go. You heard it. So, and if you want to suggest an episode topic, the way to do it is contact@corpseclub.com, or, you can tag us on Twitter @DailyDeadNews or @corpseclub.com. On Instagram and Facebook, we're under Corpse Club as well. Thanks again for listening. I hope everyone had a very happy Halloween. And until next time, stay scary.